Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about massively changing your life, tips to keeping your sanity. Recently, I've made a series of moves that massively changed and shifted my life, and this is the first major change in my life over the last 5 years. This was not and has not been easy for me to go through. Starting a family, changing jobs, and moving to a bigger place all within a span of a few months. This wasn't planned at all, but it kind of all fell in the same couple of months, and it got me thinking about how I'm managing my stress during this difficult period of my life. This definitely isn't the first time I'm changing jobs and moving to a new place, but I haven't done it in a really long time. Back then, I was much more younger and more mobile. I didn't have to carry along a family with me. And now, being more settled, I have more responsibilities so that I can't change my mind willy-nilly. It's easy to switch up your life when you're single and very mobile, but it's very hard to do once you get older. I've really had to dig deep and draw on previous experiences of the lessons that I've learned, and help guide me along the current situation so I don't freak out or be flustered. So if you're like me and going through a massive change, here are some tips that might help you out. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And here we go. After moving to Washington, I told myself that I wasn't going to make large changes if I can help it. And if there were changes in my life, that I would keep them manageable and easy. This was partially due to the constant state of changes in my 20s, but also due to the high workload at my job. I wanted my 30s to be a lot smoother than in my 20s, more settled. And I was definitely able to do this heading into 2020. But as always, life always seems to throw curveballs in our way. With a baby on the way, we decided to move to a new place, but also it coincided with a job change as well. I had been thinking about a job change for a while now, and this opportunity just happened to come along and it was perfect for me. I think initially the stress really didn't hit me, but as the dates got closer, I started to get more and more stressed out. For example, the move out date, putting in my 2 weeks, starting a new job, and the baby's third trimester. With each of these events, my anxiety started to increase little by little. I had to constantly remind myself that I've gone through these changes before and it was nothing new to me, except for the new baby. So overall, I was less stressed about that, but it was still a constant worry for me. But in general, I still had to take time for myself and process what was going on as it was happening, and that my mind and emotions are in line with all the life changes. If they are aligned, they can help deal with changes in a much more smoother process. And this was based upon my previous experience of what I had to go through before in my 20s. These next couple of tips are directly born from my experience of massively changing my life. So here are my tips on keeping your sanity during massive changes. Number 1, don't freak out. Above all else, when something massive is going through your life, don't freak out about the moment. When massive changes in your life are happening, it can get easily overwhelming for you and those around you. Juggling and thinking about all the things that you need to do can be mentally demanding on you. For me, I know how hard this is to do in real life, but keep in mind, try not to freak out. What I try to do is reflect on my changes and breathe deeply as I'm reflecting or thinking about them. And I also try to keep some distance between various different things, short-term and long-term. I tend to focus on short-term stuff first and worry about the long-term stuff later. I'm allowing my mind some relief about the long-term stuff. So I suggest when you're about to freak out, try to focus on your breathing and think about just the next day and the next day after that, one day at a time. But make sure that you don't compromise on your life's routine. Keep that a habit. This means getting the proper nutrition, exercise, and sleep that you might need. When you are in the midst of changing your life massively, it can get overwhelming at times. Keep the short term in focus and breathe deep. And focus on just the next step to get you through day by day. Number 2, take time to focus. One of the best and most effective lessons I've learned about massively changing your life is that you must take the time and process what's going on. This is basically getting your body and mind aligned with the new environment and situation that you're going to be in. And this can also be interpreted as just being comfortable with your new surroundings, wherever that might be. You can ask yourself questions. Am I okay with this? Am I not okay with this? How will I make it okay? When I was younger, I didn't think that we needed to process changes at all. I thought that we could roll with it and be okay and move on. Certainly, it's much easier to do that when you're younger and you don't have a lot of responsibilities. But as you get older, things might get ingrained and you have a lot more responsibilities, so you need that time to process the new conditions. Any changes now might require a shift in your mindset, so you need time to process that. For some, it'll be easier and shorter to go through this step. Others, it'll take longer. In my 20s, I was constantly doing new things all the time, so I was able to take more changes rapidly and without processing it. But as I gotten older, there was more baggage in my life, so I had to weigh my decisions more carefully and I had to be okay with the changes that were occurring. Because I got used to a way of life and changing that just wasn't easy for me anymore. The key is for people to take time and reflect upon the changes that are occurring in your life. And it can take any form that you want. Journaling, talking to someone, or just sitting at a park and letting your mind wander. The goal is to sit with the issue until you properly processed it and it no longer burdens you. For some, it may take minutes, for others, it might take weeks or months, depending on how it's impacting your life. So whenever you're going through massive life changes, be sure to build in some time so you can properly reflect and think upon what's going on. Make sure that you're okay mentally and emotionally with it, and then you'll be ready. Number 3, organize your actions. When you're changing your life massively, you're gonna have a lot of stuff on your plate. Organize it and create a list of all the actions that you need to do, and then prioritize them. This process allows you to create order out of the chaos that is massively changing your life. And also, don't take on more than you can handle during this period. It is crucial that you not overwhelm yourself. Limit the new things that you take on and just go into maintenance mode with all the other events in your life. For example, hanging out with friends or family obligations can be one thing that you put off in maintenance mode. When I moved to a new city for a job, I created massive lists and prioritized them. This not only allowed all the thoughts in my heads to be down on physical paper, but it also gave me confidence in myself whenever I would finish an action. And the process of crossing things out helped me to be calmer in the midst of a lot of stress. So I suggest creating a list for all the things that you need to do when you're going through life changes. And keep that list accessible so you can see it on a daily basis so you know what you need to do next. So create order out of chaos and you're on your way to making big changes in your life. Number 4, just do one thing. Once you create your list, I cannot stress this enough. Do one thing on that list, whatever it is. The act of getting started will be a big confidence booster for you. When you're massively changing your life, the list of things that you need to do can get overwhelming. Just start by doing one thing first. This way, you'll be less demotivated looking at your massive list of all the things that you need to do. But then once you start crossing things off your list, keep that momentum going. Keep crossing off things. Keep doing one thing at a time. This also can help you lessen the stress and anxiety that comes with life changes. Because this helps you to narrow your focus onto one activity so you're only worried about that one thing. For me, if they're not high priority, I start with the easy stuff first and then go to harder and harder things. And if I have large tasks on my action list, I break them up into smaller chunks so that it's more manageable. The simpler and more detailed the task is, the more easier it is for you to complete it. The key is to start something, focus on that, and keep the momentum going. Number 5, uncertainty is coming. You can plan and prepare all you want, but at the end of the day, there's always going to be uncertainty when you're changing your life massively. This is because there's no way to accurately plan out everything that you need to do precisely. Life will throw you curveballs and you never know what's going to happen next. And this uncertainty might cause you a lot of anxiety and stress because of it. Because as humans, we want to know what's next. We don't like uncertainty or the fear of the unknown. But I challenge you to accept the uncertainty and just have it in the back of your mind that things can go wrong. And just assume that you're gonna have to deal with something that you didn't anticipate happening. I can't tell you the amount of challenges and issues that occurred to me along the way every time I'm making a life change. And even when I'm not making a life change, life throws you curveballs. It was never obvious to me in the planning stages, and it always took time out of my day to try to resolve it. There were certainly good surprises along the way, but most of it wasn't a pleasant surprise. But the way I looked at it was, I always had a good track record of dealing with it and figuring out what needed to be done. And that gave me confidence in the next series of challenges that might come towards me. It may not be much, but it definitely got me through some difficult, frustrating periods of my life. So I would definitely recommend when you're changing your life massively, expect uncertainty. Assume that it's going to happen to you. It's just a part of life and you'll have to deal with the unknown at some point. And you have to remind yourself that it'll be okay in the end. The sun will always rise just as the next day and the next day after that. Uncertainty is a given, so expect it. So here are my general thoughts on keeping your sanity during massive life changes. Life changes can be really difficult, especially if you're comfortable with a certain style of living. When I was younger and moving around a lot, it didn't bother me that I was switching up my life conditions all the time. I had less of everything: responsibility, job experience, and physical things. And so moving around a lot, it was just easier to do in general. But as I started getting older, I started accumulating a lot of things, both physical and mental. As you start to accumulate physical stuff, job experience, and responsibility, you have more and more baggage. It's just a fact of life. The older you get, the more stuff you accumulate. And you start to compensate that baggage with life stability, so you don't want to change things around a lot. That way you have a little bit more under your control so that it's not constantly changing. So with this piece of knowledge, I do what I can to try to lessen the baggage of my past so that I don't carry it forward with me into the future. Because the more I let go, the more stress and anxiety I let go as well. Because when you're trying to change your life massively, the stress and anxiety comes from the fact that you're trying to bring the past into the present and into the future. The more stuff you have mentally and physically, the more stress it's going to cause you. I definitely need to keep this in mind for the future changes that are coming to me. I need to make sure that I'm pruning stuff from my past and not constantly stress over them. Remove the excess baggage in my life, if you will, so that I'm ultimately not carrying all my past with me to the next phase of my life. So those are my tips on keeping sane when you're massively trying to change your life. Change is not an easy process, no matter how old you are. It affects each of us very differently, but there are common things that we all go through. New routines, unfamiliar environments and situations, and loss are all some things that we might lose during our change. And it's all things that we need to cope and adjust our lives to in the end. After going through this many times myself, I know that there's things that I can do to keep my wits about me and not go through a lot of stress and anxiety. So the main keys are to don't freak out, take time to process, and know that uncertainty is coming. So thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment down below on whether or not you've gone through a massive life change and whether or not that was a good or bad experience for you. And I'll see you next time.